Everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for the RWBY Volume 9 finale of Solitude and Self. Definitely a fun finale. It actually wrapped up fairly well compared to the worries that I had with, the penultimate episode of the season. I think they did a really good job, honestly, because I was super worried with how rushed the episode before last felt. And it was just like, man, I hope that they were able to, kind of bring everything together. And ultimately, they wrapped it up really well. They did what I hoped that they would do, because my main concern because of the last episode was like, I hope that this wraps up, because my whole thing was like, this season has to be here and then they're done with this place. Like, sure, there can be stuff that connects, which they hit us with. They were like, here's a twist. And then they were like, here's another twist as well. So they definitely made sure to do something very important, at least in the season finale, that is not just, character development. Cause that I would say was for sure like the main point of this season was, hey, here's a bunch of stuff that is very important to, at the very least, a couple of the characters. I would say for sure, RWBY and Jaune more than anyone else. Like everyone else I think was kind of okay. Obviously, Blake and Yang are finally together, so that was a huge moment that we've been waiting for an eternity. But as far as like characters growing past the things that they've dealt with, this was the season that was like, okay, RWBY's gonna officially just be like, all of that stuff hurt, I don't know how to deal with it, and then she finally deals with it and she understands that it's been tough, it's been crazy. But ultimately, hey, I'm the person that needs to do it and I'm capable of doing it. That's why I've done it before. She basically just needs to understand, well, you've done it before. You can keep doing it. Like, you don't have to change to be able to do it. You just need to realize that, oddly enough, sometimes you have to look at the younger version of yourself having succeeded to realize the older version of yourself can do it just as well, if not even better. So I was like, all right, that was cool. She needed to understand to trust herself. Jaune needed to understand that he doesn't, he really had like the classic superhero thing where all he's ever wanted to do was save people. And I still wish that they kind of brought up more about his family and how, that was like the whole point of him literally lying to get into the school in the first place. I do wish they brought that in like at least a little bit more. It was just like kind of the surface level thing. At least, a little bit, it felt a little surface level, because it was like, yeah, that's his thing. Like he always wants to save people because, much like RWBY, people have died. Like he literally had to kill Penny, which I wish they referenced that a little bit more as well, where they have him like flat out say like, this is what happened. But he goes through his moment, he does what he needs to do to kind of overcome his issues as well. So I thought they did a good job wrapping up really the main 2 points for the 2 characters that were suffering the most. So I was like, all right, that's really good. Jaune got to be young again, but they kept the little white streaks in his hair. Amazing sequence where he's like, this is what I sound like. Absolutely phenomenal. That was just super funny to me, so I absolutely love that. I was totally wrong about the blacksmith being Alex. I just assumed for sure. I was like, that looks like her. She has like the colors in her hair. That wasn't the case. Apparently Alex straight up died. And based on how they explained it, because I had to watch the episode a second time, I'm assuming based on the explanation that the blacksmith gives is that Alex could have come back as someone else, but what she decided to do was sacrifice herself to basically put the magic into her blade so that she could fix that wrong for Jaune. So I'm like, that's the best I got. I was like, okay, she sacrificed her life. She wanted to correct the wrong that she made, so she had like a final wish. So I was like, okay, she kind of, it's not a loophole. It was kind of just something where she was like, all right, instead of using the magic to literally come back as something new, what if I just use the magic to do this instead? So I was like, all right, that's a cool way to handle that. And of course, make Jaune young again. So I was like, all right, that was a nice little way to handle that. But it was definitely fun. Obviously the action was great. We got Red Like Roses Part 3. I assume that's what everyone's been saying. I don't know if they've officially said that that's the name of the song, but I assume everyone's correct. And it's like, yeah, that's Red Like Roses Part 3. So that was cool. She comes back and it's like, yeah, I had PTSD and now I only have ass whoopings to give. And it was great. It was a great scene. It was like all the budget was just like, here you go. It was kind of like, okay, then, last episode was kind of like, oh yeah, I wish the action was like more intense and stuff. And in this episode, they're like, all right, kind of had to save it up a bit. But here's an amazing fight sequence for RWBY where she's come back. She knows who she is. She's so confident. She does the main hero smirk where it was like, oh, you thought you had me? Nah. And then she pulls the trigger on. So it's like they went, full main hero mode on her. And I was like, all right, that was pretty sick. They did all the stuff referencing like the original video that first came out with her character, like doing the stance and everything. I was like, this is super cool. And, all the music cues were great. Of course, them playing at least a rendition, of course, of the original theme, This Will Be the Day. It was like, that was great, at the very end of the episode. So I thought that was super cool. I loved all of that. I was like, man, I haven't heard that in a little minute, honestly. So I was like, oh, it was great to really hear that, because when that first came out, I loved that. So it's like, it's RWBY, so there's a buttload of songs that I really love. I just haven't listened to that one in a while. I probably haven't listened to that or the Volume 3 opening. I don't have them set like in my favorites on my new phone, so I actually haven't heard them in a super long time. But I was like, man, like I used to play the crap out of that first song, and then when Volume 3 came out, I was like Andy in what was it, Toy Story 2, when Woody had that dream. I was like, I don't want to play with you anymore. Like I got rid of the first volume. I was like, no, this Volume 3 opening, that's where it was at. So I love both of those, of course. At this point, I don't, you play them 100 million times. Eventually, you get tired of them. But when both of those first came out, I was losing my mind. I was like, these are so good. It was just amazing. Those are probably still like my 2 favorite songs. Those, and I still really like, Bumblebee might be like my number 1 song, but definitely really good. I love what they did with the characters. Little came back. My theory about Little possibly coming back as Little was so wrong, but it ended up happening with RWBY, where she came back as herself, knowing that she already, she just needed to be herself. Little, of course, does actually end up changing. I thought that was cool. For half a second, I thought for sure they were gonna hit Little with just like, oh, what are you gonna call yourself? And it was somehow they were gonna get to just big or tall or something silly like that. But they end on somewhat, and I thought that was really cool. And we'll see what happens. I would assume years from now, if they decide to take the characters back there and, do something in that regard. But I thought they did a good job with that. I love the sequence where Somewhat and Juniper kind of go off and everyone goes towards the door. They had a great little moment where they're all walking and then Jaune kind of stops and he looks back again. And then he like turns, back where everyone else is, and he wipes his eyes because he was crying. And I love that sequence. I was like, that was a really good, like, just small moment, because he'd been there for like 20 years. He'd been there for, they're all 16 or something like that at this point. So he was there a couple years, and then Alex and her brother showed up, and then they went through, the whole story and waiting for everyone else to show up. So he'd been there for a long time. We of course don't know how long he'd been with Juniper, but I would imagine it's a very long time. And plus, it doesn't have to be that long considering everything he went through just being alone. It was like, that was a really cool moment where it was just like a small little thing where it was like, dang, I don't know if I'm coming back here. Like we got, like we're leaving here, and there's a buttload of stuff I got to deal with. As soon as we get out of here, there's a lot happening. So that was cool. I thought that was a cool little touch that they added in there where he stops for a second, because no one else had that. No one else has an attachment to the Ever After the way that he does. So I thought that was really cool that they added just that little extra moment for his character where he stops and it's like, man, that chapter that who would have seen that coming for anyone's life? It was like, that chapter in my life is over now, and Juniper's off to do whatever, and I'm off to who knows what at this point. So I thought that was a really cool thing. And then of course, fortunately for him, even though he still had to leave all that behind, like I said, he does get DH, so that was good for him. And then keeps things very in line. I'm sure they'll talk about that in the next volume, and everyone will be describing like, this is what he used to look like you wouldn't believe like how his voice sounded and all this. I'm sure they'll make all those jokes, so that'll be fun to see. But I like what they did. I thought it was a good wrap up to the season. I'm certainly excited going into the next volume, what in the world they're going to be telling us, because they were like, hey, like I said, a double twist. It was like, all right, here's Summer. It was great to see more of her character talking and stuff. We saw her actually talk with Taeyang, so that was super cool. And it's like, all right, got to go off and do this mission. And then Raven comes out, and it was great to see Raven. I was obsessed with her. Like when she first came, if you go back to like, what was that, volume 2? I think that was the volume 2 thing. If you go back to that, I was losing my mind. I think the whole thumbnail is literally just question marks saying, who is she? Because I was so hyped, because it was just a character that looked like a samurai and had a blade that could, cut through space and time. Love the design. She's a real, she's a shitty person. Like, I don't like her as a person because she's a bad mom. Like, there's a lot wrong with her as a person, but man, she has the sickest design ever. So I still love her, but I'm like, man, she sucks. But it was great to see them together, and it was like, well, what the F is this? Also, amazing line was like, oh, you just gonna leave him? It was like, you're one that talking. Was like, got him, shut her right up. She just like, yeah, I do suck. But that was great. And it was like this insane mystery where it's like, oh, she went off on this mission. Obviously, Summer didn't come back, so everyone assumes that she died. But there is this whole thing where it was like, I'm pretty sure it was said somewhere where it was like Raven went on a mission with the former maiden, and that maiden didn't return. And then somehow Raven becomes a maiden, and it's like, fascinating. So I don't, it could mean that. But if that's not a thing, then Summer could still be alive, because that's what everyone's been saying. Like after a certain amount of time, I think we were all just kind of like, well, she just wasn't dead though. She's just been doing something. So I don't know if they're ever gonna officially explain it. Maybe she is officially dead, and we're gonna finally get something in the next volume where they're like, this is the actual story. Though, they could do like 2 full episodes, depending on what it is. It's a mission where she died. that I'm sure that could take up at least 2 episodes. So next volume, we might officially get that answer as to what exactly happened there. What was this secret mission? Like, what in the world were they doing that was like a precursor to, her dying? Like, and the precursor, to the season as a whole. Like, there has to have been something that they left for that was this serious mission that took out 2 people, especially if they do reveal that she was a maiden at that time. But it'll just be interesting. And actually, Raven wasn't the maiden, it was that other girl. So never mind, all that theory is wrong. But they still went on that secret mission. And so, there's still something there. And I would assume in some way, shape, or form, that girl that was with Raven, hold on. It's been so long, God. No, Raven was actually the maiden. Okay, yeah, I'm trying to remember, it's been so effing long. Raven was actually the maiden. The other girl was pretending to be the maiden. That's what it was. Okay, so it's possible Summer was the former maiden, which I think a lot of people referenced that a long time ago. And it's like, they went on this mission, she died, Raven becomes the maiden after that. And also, it has been noted through the series itself, she can only teleport to like a couple of people. And 2 of them, one of them was in bed, the other one was in the house, and the third person was Crow. I was like, there's something there. That's a very interesting thing. So 3 out of the 4 members of that old team went on some super secret mission, and one of them did not return. And things really changed after that. So I'm very excited. We might have to wait. They might hold, who the F knows? Like, with the way this show be doing stuff for us, or to us, I should say, not for us, but to us sometimes, where it's just like reveals take 5 effing years, or moments that we know should be coming take like 3 extra volumes. Who the F knows if we'll get the answer by the time we see volume 10. I hope that's the case. I mean, it's 10 volumes. It doesn't really mean anything. I mean, technically the show's been on for over 10 years, especially with this 2-year gap. But just with the fancy number, be like, volume 10 could be the one where it's like, it's volume 10. We're going to give you all these answers. Here's Jaune's semblance. I'm still waiting for that. Like, that's going to get me. That's the last thing. That is like the last thing. Like, as much as we need to know what happened with Summer, I'm like, Jaune is in my face every effing episode. I need to know what this man is doing. They said we saw it a long time ago. I still haven't figured it out, but I'm waiting for that one. But I like what they did with this volume. Definitely excited for volume 10. I do hope we get one. I know everyone's like, hey, I think it's just because of the 2-year thing that everyone's kind of worried, like, hey, make sure you talk about the show. I'm not personally worried that they aren't going to continue the show. I think they've just had a lot of things to deal with, both in company and just in world. So there's a lot that they've been dealing with. So I think we shouldn't have any concerns about whether or not we're getting a volume 10. I think we're going to be fine with that. But I know people are kind of worried. Like, it has been a long time. And, like I said, things have happened both inside the company and just in the world in general. That kind of caused things to get pushed out the way it did as far as this volume as a whole. But I'm not super concerned. I do think we're going to get volume 10. I'm looking forward to it. I definitely want to see what they do next. I'm happy that they did conclude this story. They have the ever after. They can talk about it with other characters, but now they can move on. They're back in the real world. And we can see what happens. And then, of course, on top of mystery number 1, or, twist number 1, we have twist number 2, where they go to inside the tree. And then it's like, oh, they, seeing all the figures and stuff. And then here's 2 figures of the brothers. We thought they were gods, and they are in a sense, but they were born of the ever after. They started off real nice and simple, just cute little things. And then they grew, and it was like, all right, well, we got to make this, but we got to clear out this. And then it was like, all right, well, let's make this cat because he can do our job, and let's make the Jabberwock because he can do the other job. So I guess creating stuff. I still don't understand what the actual job was, because I'm like, I don't see how the cat helping characters get their, I guess it helps them find their purpose. So that was the creation aspect of it. It allowed the other characters within the world to keep creating versus like the gods doing it themselves. So I was like, I don't understand how the cat being able to give a little bit of his heart does anything to create. Like, it didn't make any sense to me. So I'm kind of pulling that one. If you guys have an explanation, definitely let me know, because I was confused by that. I'm like, I don't see how him helping people get courage or, calm down and stuff like that helps really create things. But it did allow for the caterpillar to straight up go into ascension. So it was like, finding their purpose and expanding the world as a whole and changing it, I guess, counts. And then, of course, the Jabberwock, absolute chaos. And they did something very interesting with that, where the god of creation was the one that destroyed it, and the god of destruction was like, hey, what if we brought it back? Like, let it do its job, and we just figure out how to, kind of balance it out a little bit. I was kind of on the god of creation side, like just a little bit, because I'm like, we've seen what the Jabberwocks do, and it was like, it seems like it's way more chaotic, but maybe it was just the fact that it was like, hey, what if we just make one instead of, obviously just one good, one bad. So I thought that was interesting. I was like, okay, that could lead to something, could be nothing, but it was like, oh, the god of creation was the one that was like, this creation sucks, let's wipe it out and do something else. And the god of destruction was like, well, hold on, let's see it, let's let it play out and see how things work. So that could just be them being like, hey, here's what's going to happen at the end. The god of creation, who seems like the good god and the nice one, is going to be the one that's super strict. And then the god of destruction is going to be the one that's like, well, they've done all these good things. He's going to actually be the one to really balance it out and not just be like, it's done or it's not done. So that was interesting. It was like, okay, that's like, just a little tease. I don't think we'll see them in the next volume. I don't know how much time they don't have a ton of time. I know that they were talking about it probably in the last volume or the one before that, where it was like, hey, we got to kind of get these things together and sort of do this specific thing. So I don't know if they specified how much time they have, but I don't think we'll see them in the very next one. I think they still got a couple things to do. They got so many villains and stuff. I'm like, I think we still have a bit of time before the gods officially come back. So that might be maybe volume 11, but probably like volume 12 or something. But I liked everything they did. Ultimately, I thought the volume was definitely a fun volume. I certainly enjoyed it. I think if it weren't for the fact that I hate that they rushed the last episode, or that's how it felt to me personally, I think I would have loved this season even more, because I felt like once episode 4 hit and it was like, referencing Ascension and getting all the answers and learning about Alex and then finding out she had a brother and all the dark sides of Ascension and what is and is not the truth, it was fantastic. I felt like it was ramping up. Everything was great. And then as soon as RWBY dies pretty much, they just spent one episode. I was like, oh, this is the answer. We figured it out. And now we're at the tree. And I was like, they could have put one more episode in. I mean, the whole season has been like, 12, 15 minute episodes. I think 15 minutes could have done the trick. Just have them sit with that loss a bit longer and not really know what to do next, and not instantaneously find the answer and accept everything about the tree. And then poof, they're at the end game. I was like, man, that one little moment was like just a hiccup, because it felt so rushed to me, where I was like, everything felt like it had time to breathe. Everything felt good. And it just makes me wish that like the first 3 episodes were really cut down, because I was like, man, especially the very first episode, I was like, I felt like the first episode was almost a pointless episode. Like, they do nothing in that first episode. I was like, man, they did that. They could have just put that, put that extra time, towards the end of the season, give them extra time to breathe with the loss that they had. And I think I mentioned this in my last review, when they eventually end up getting to RWBY, I still think the concept of them kind of taking her out of the tree, being like, hey, what if we just talk to her like a normal human being and help her understand we're on her side? She doesn't have to be something else. Makes a lot of sense. Like, Yang just giving up super fast was still like, that seems dumb to me, where it was like, oh, we just have to accept it and hopefully she comes back. I'm like, the possibilities are quite literally endless, that she could come back as anything else and anyone else. And there was no fight or argument to be like, but if we rip her out as her, we as her family can just talk to her like a person and help her through this naturally. She doesn't actually have to kill herself. They never even had the chance to talk to her, because once she had her outburst, she left and then she killed herself, and that was it. They never had a chance to even try to talk to her. She had to do it on her own. And I'm like, they didn't even put that concept out. At least just put it out there, even if they didn't follow through with it. Just putting the little bit of dialogue in there is like, they could have just had Yang say it, or somebody could have logically been like, but if we pull her out as herself, we can help her through it. We are her family. We've been through all of these things. They even talk about it where it's like, yeah, we always say like, we'll follow your lead, and we kind of put things on her. We'll get her out of there and then just talk to her about that, like help her understand that's why you follow her. Like when she came out and it was like, RWBY isn't any of those bad things that the cat says. Is like, that's why we follow her. Like, we trust and believe in her. We know she's strong enough. You could say that stuff. They were obviously caught way off guard when she lost it. But I'm like, they just didn't have time to even, like I said, just throw a line in there, be like, well, what if we take her out? And then they could just be like, well, we don't know what'll happen if we do it early or whatever. I'm just like, I feel like it was weird. It just felt rushed that they instantly came to the acceptance. And that was the one hiccup. That was genuinely it. I was just like, man, that really sucks, because I was loving this whole volume. It might be one of my favorites as far as continuously just being like, wow, I love that episode. That was really cool. We got a decent chunk of information, and things continuously escalated at a really good pace, I felt. And then that was like the one moment where I was like, ooh, that was just a little too fast and didn't feel like it made a lot of sense to me. But overall, I feel like that was the thing that, kind of just a little bit of a hiccup. But I do think it was a very well done season overall. I think I certainly enjoyed other seasons more, but as far as like a full season, like episode to episode, like I said, once I hit like episode 4, it was like, okay, still kind of building up, getting answers. Each episode was like, here's a good enough answer. Like every season, I feel we're just waiting for like that thing to happen. And this whole volume, or at least most of this volume, was like, here's at least a little bit of information. Every episode, starting with 4, I'd say. Well, starting at 5. 4 was like the introduction to Ascension, but 5 was where it really hit. And it was like, every single episode felt like it had enough for me to truly feel satisfied. Like that was enough of an answer, even though the episodes were way too short. That was another thing with this volume. But I feel like every single episode gave me enough of an answer to be satisfied every single week. It wasn't like, well, this week they talked about this, or some pointless random mission thing happened that was like kind of outside the walls, and there was like maybe one line of dialogue where the characters were like, this is how I feel. It's like, cool, 2 lines of dialogue that I care about. I felt like most of this season I actually cared, because it was like, here's a definitive answer, here's something else that's an answer, but it might create more questions and stuff like that. And I felt like they did a really good job, minus like that one moment where the pacing felt a little too quick. I felt like they did a fantastic job going from beginning to end. Like, here's enough per episode. So I certainly enjoyed it. Overall as a season, it might be my favorite pacing wise, just feeling like content with every single episode, or most of the episodes at least. But it still wouldn't be my favorite. I think volume 3 might still be the one, because that was that was just a crazy, and it was just like, holy crap, that was just wild. But I definitely enjoyed this season. I'm very excited to see what we get next. It does suck that instead of getting the classic post-credit sequence, we just got the dumb trailer for the RWBY Justice League thing, which I found out was on like Vudu. I was trying to figure out like this whole time, I was like, where the F can I watch this? Apparently it's like on Vudu. I'm like, what? That's so weird to me. But at some point I'll end up watching that, maybe illegally, I'll be honest, because I'm not gonna pay for Vudu. But that sucked that that's what we got, where it was just like, here's the trailer for the movie that's coming out. I was like, would have loved like a post-credit sequence, even if it wasn't them, like literally anything that was just like, here's the other characters that are back in Remnant. But instead we got like the little trailer, and I was like, well, that kind of stuff. It was like a bit of a sour taste. I was just like, ooh, after all this, 2 years, admittedly, despite enjoying each episode, it's still really short. That still bugged me. Like every single episode still felt way too short, having only 2 episodes that were like 26 minutes long. So, it still felt short, but at least, in the end, I do feel content per episode. But it was like, wow, slightly sour taste ending on just like, yeah, here you go, post-credit trailer. Like, ugh, that sucks. But still looking forward to volume 10 without a doubt. Of course, we'll love to know what you guys thought about this volume. The highs and the lows, the absolute insanity of, I didn't even talk about Neo. I was gonna be like, the insanity of Neo just whooping on RWBY, which was a fantastic episode. But Neo, not only does she kill the Curious Cat by making more Jabberwocks, but she ends up staying, and she jumps down and goes into the tree. And I love the fact that they had like all the petals were like her umbrella behind her. So I thought that was cool. At some point we'll see Neo. Sadly, I think because of especially what she's going through, I don't think she'll come back with the same design. She'll be a totally different character. And I'm like, dang, that really sucks, because I love her character. I love her design as is. So I don't know what they do with her. Like, obviously they'll still have her powers and stuff like that. She could come back as a hero. I mean, she would literally be a different person. So they could do quite literally anything with her. Once again, that might be a few volumes down the line as they're getting towards the end game stuff. It's like, oh yeah, we probably gotta bring her out of that other world and get her back in the show. So she could literally be anything, and that'll be interesting to see. I don't think she'll, like RWBY, I highly doubt she'll come back in that way. Like, she almost has to come back as a different character. She is like, the whole point of her character is she is straight up broken. She cannot come back as just Neo. So it's really unfortunate. I think this is like 100% like the final episode that we ever see Neo as that character. She'll come back as someone else. She'll even speak, which is crazy. I assume that she'll speak, which would be kind of funny if they kept her where she was mute when she comes back as well. But I assume she'll speak. She'll just be a different character. So it's crazy. Unless they pull a real insane twist and she does come back as herself. I think this is, obviously my opinion, I think this would be the last time we ever, unfortunately, ever truly get to see Neo. So that sucks, because I always loved her character. She has like one of the best introductions for sure. She has one of my favorite moments. I think her introduction, and then whatever episode that was in volume 2, where they criminally gave us one episode with those amazing alternate outfits, like Yang in that white and black jacket is still one of the sickest things ever. And it was like, we're just gonna do one episode. I don't know why they did that to us. Another thing they did to us, one episode, that was super rude, because those outfits were specifically Yang. I can barely remember anyone else's alternate outfit, but I remember Yang's. That junk was sick. And I remember loving that fight. I screamed out loud during that final moment. I love that song, I love that fight, and the way it ended, where she just punches it and it just shatters. It was like one of the coolest moments in the entire series for me. So always love Neo, gonna miss her. But definitely a fun season. Looking forward to the next. Like I said, would love to know what you guys thought about this volume as a whole, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. Obviously, with both of the twists, I would love to know what you guys think about that. What the F does that mean for what happened with Summer and the relationship with her and Raven, and also Crow, because that would be the person that they teleported to. So there's a lot to unpack with that one, if we even get an answer, but there's going to be some questions. RWBY knows. She's going to tell the rest of the team, and Crow is the closest person that can give them an answer, and they're going to be like, what the F happened? Because they already know that that's who she can teleport to. At least I'm pretty sure they do, because I think Raven told that to Yang, so she'd have that information like, she can only do like these couple of things. We need to go to Uncle Crow. So I'm looking forward to them getting those answers in the next volume. But all in all, want to know what you guys thought, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.